Good morning. Asante sana for creating time for us. It is Social Hour as we begin discussions centering around relationship, friendships, becoming a better you and a better social being in the society. And like I always say, we hope that this hour actually empowers you. And we are going to be taking it a notch higher today. Sometimes we diversify and talk about matters family. And we began a conversation recently where we were talking about the dilemma of sometimes you get to have a child at a time when you are not prepared or circumstances as kukubali to take care of that particular child. And we talked about the dilemma of choosing whether to give that child for adoption or to take care of that child, or kuishi na mtoto mwenye how feel like you were ready to parent, and the things that these children go through in the hands of parents who are not ready to really take care of them. And something came up and we decided to take this discussion a notch higher, the adoption dilemma. And that is what we want to talk about, whether sometimes we think that this could be the best option in such a circumstance, but what are the complexities when it comes to giving up your child for adoption? And we're going to be talking about that with my panel this particular morning, and as we just dissect and see what is the best way forward before you make that decision, how does it impact the child, the adoptive parent, and even the biological parent. And we have a panel with us in studio, wale watu mmewazoea, the people you love so much. And we have Ken Munywa. Ken, karibu sana to the show. Good to see you.
Good morning.
I'm glad that you're here. Psychologist atatupea hiyo psychology ya mtoto. Kutekiwa care kwa biological family na adoptive. What are some of the variations? Roberta, karibu.
Hi.
You're well?
I'm good as a former child. Those are who I'm representing today.
Semi upcoming.
Okay. Proud parent to one little kitten.
That's what I wanted to say. Already a parent. When I kitten, eh?
Yeah.
It's true.
It's valid, and my experiences are valid.
Yeah.
Yes.
Karibu sana. All right. Cutie Lady Josh, karibu.
Good to see you. Tukona 3 shades of pink.
Nakwambia leo.
No, it's okay. Cheki, it's okay. Don't even overthink it. It's okay to wear pink.
Na unakapoa.
It's not an admission of whether sina shida na pink. I thought I wore
Wait, topic pink. Anyway, so we are talking about adoption and the dilemma that sometimes comes because kulingana na topic tuliongea, and by the way, that show I'll be connecting it to this one up on YouTube. We thought that in circumstances where a parent is not in a position to really take care of a child and to give them the best upbringing that they deserve as children, maybe the best option would be to give them up for adoption. And something came up. The question was, is that really the best alternative? Considering the complexities that sometimes comes, unapata mtu amegrow, amefika 30, bado anatafuta baba yake, anatafuta mama yake. There is something about growing up in a different environment that we need to explore. And that's what we want to talk about, today. Tanzia Ken. Hii maneno imekuwa serious. Adoption vis-a-vis a child getting taken care of within the context of their biological parents. If you look at these two environments, what are the comparisons and the variations?
First, I would say congratulations to any woman who decides to give birth and they were not ready to parent. It takes a lot of strength. Let me go through this pregnancy journey. I may not be able to nurture the child once they are here, but at least I will not terminate the pregnancy. So that takes a lot of strength. In the matters of where the child thrives, it depends on the environment that the child has been given. It is just recently we were talking about how many paternity cases have failed. And children being raised by not their real parents. We've also been in a situation where some mothers got their babies exchanged, even in the maternity ward. But they decide to nurture that baby, yet they did not know. For a child, trauma must happen at one particular time. whether it will happen earlier during the adoption or later after the adoption. When they are young, some people may decide to tell them, but unajua wewe sio wa huku. You know, people are so blunt. Or when they are of age, and then there is that mom, dad, come, let's have a sit down, you know, wewe sio wetu. We decided to take you up. So for a child, trauma will happen at one particular time, but it depends on how the news of the adoption has been shared to the baby. And the reasoning why. We have pseudo parents and we also have foster parents. Pseudo parents are, I'm raising my sister's child, but my sister is with the baby, but I am the one technically taking care of. That's a pseudo father. Foster is my sister cannot now be able to take care of that child. Either they are not there or they are there and choose otherwise, and now I have to take the baby. So I would say, before you think of adoption, take care of the baby. It should be for the benefit of this child. That whatever decision you're going to take, let it be for the benefit of the baby. Sometimes not for the parent, because some parents are selfish, to be honest. They just want, last week I was telling you how wengine wanataka kukuja Kanairo to have fun, waache watoto huko. Are they really doing that for the sake of the baby, or they are being selfish for their own interest? So the interest of the baby should be the first consideration to be made.
All right. I like how you began congratulating all the sitasema women, parents, kwa sababu it takes two.
Tango.
All the parents who have decided to really bring a child into this world despite the difficult circumstances, And today we are talking about the decisions that sometimes they're really caught up between a rock and a hard place to make, and one of them is adoption and how that affects a child. Roberta, just to weigh in, you know, there's usually that struggle, and people think that would be the safest direction to go, to peane mtoto for adoption. It could be at a safe house, a children's home. It could be at a relative's place, you know, sister, brother, whichever arrangement that you agree as a family. But tunaonanga struggles zenye zotokea mtoto kama huyo akigrow. Sometimes that struggle to really find the identity later in life. Just talk to us about, if you are to look at these two dynamic environments, what are some of the things that these parents should consider first before making that very difficult decision?
You know, I'm trying to imagine if coming to the idea of even, you know, going through with adoption is ever easy. I don't think in any situation, whether there's financial stability or like mko sawa, mnapendana, I don't think it's ever easy to let go of your child or your kin, especially intentionally. So it does take a lot. But being pro-choice, this extends all the way to adoption as well, because it means that you're able to put yourself as a caregiver or as a parent in a position. This is if we're making a decision. Si zile circumstantial, let's say mtu amekuwa bereaved or anything. This is if the parents are here still, So I would assume that for them to reach such a conclusion, it is difficult. It has come with a lot of, you know, emotional turmoil, sometimes mostly financial turmoil, and that's why they're forced to say, you know, yes, nimebeba lakini enyewe siezi keep, ama siko sawa mentally, ama I'm not able to be a real caregiver and a present parent in this time. And as Ken was speaking, I was just trying to think about, does it really matter if the parents love you? Like, if there's love in the family, does it really matter? Because all of us go through these traumas, even in secure two-parent households. Like, we could be in a family where your parents don't even like each other, and in extension, it'll always show up to the relationship they have with you. And there's some adoptive parents foster parents, even me as a cat mom. Anytime I'm adopting, I'm not comparing human life to pets, but like, just the simple choice of deciding to pick something outside of yourself and care for it with all you have. Mi neza lala njaa, lakini lazima ni feed your kitten, whether niko na pesa ama sina, whether najisikia or not. So it's a selflessness, and it takes a lot. So I would imagine that as long as there's love in the family, does it really matter? You know, like I said, as I was listening to Ken, does it really matter who's this kid's parents or where this kid came from? I think what we should focus on as parents is the selflessness. once you decide or once you're thrusted into that space of, okay, now you're a parent, now you're a caregiver, it has to be selfless. And this is not easy. It's not easy to love something, especially outside of yourself. Kwanza, if you're like I'm always saying, love yourself, love yourself. Some people take it too far and they reach a point where they're not even able to see anything else. But for you to reach a point where you say, okay, this is what I'm doing now, this is what I've accepted, this is my life now, I think it takes a lot of selflessness. And what we should focus on is mostly the parents, because how they feel, the mindset they're at is definitely going to translate into how they make these kids feel in the relationship. So for the parents, create a conducive space for the kids.
So in addressing parents, are you addressing the adoptive parents or the biological parents?
I'm the adoptive parents,
right.
because
should be clear.
Yeah, the adoptive parents, because si rahisi, like ni ngumu, lakini as long as kuna love, does it really matter? Do you even care mtoto wa nani si wa nani ama nani ama nani? Kwanza in the African setting, African culture, as long as the kid is in your home, that's your child.
All right.
Whether ni mtoi wa neighbor, cousin, friend, sister, kama mtoi yako hapo ni wako na ni wenu, take care of it. So the love, the selflessness, it should be evident if you decide to take on a role as a parent.
And I like how you talked about selflessness, because having a child is a very difficult decision. Yeah, and it's a very important one. You can imagine now making that decision to take somebody else's child in. That is a decision you just don't make without really thinking about the consequences that will come with it. The why you are adopting should be very clear from the onset.
Absolutely.
There are people who adopt for the wrong reasons. And I believe this is why watoto wenye wameadoptiwa na such families, at some point wanaenda wana go through some challenges, yeah? Because maybe the why was wrong from the onset and circumstances changed. And then now they realize maybe they don't need this child anymore because of whatever reason why they adopted this child, or it's becoming too much to take care of that child. So the why should be very clear. QT, kuna kitu Roberta amesema that as long as the environment is safe, there is love, there is hakuna ubaguzi, that everything should be okay. But unapatanga bado mtoto ameadoptiwa, amepewa ile love yote yenye ana deserve, amepelekwa to the best schools, amefanyiwa kila kitu. But there's usually that feeling of huku si kwetu. I don't know, you know, like that search for identity, that search of belonging. Umepewa kila kitu, there is no fault at all with your adoptive parents, but still unajipata na hiyo struggle ya, this is not like my biological family. From your perspective, why do you think sometimes hii inakuanga issue?
Identity is very important for everyone and anyone. Kila mtu anataka kuji-identify. Mi ni demo Nax, nimetoka Nax, unaelewa. Mi kwetu, utapatanga tu mtu akiji-introduce anywhere. You'll always see them starting by, mi nimetoka place fulani. Like, it's something that is already in us. So utapata mtu anataka kusema, mi nimetoka fulani. Na watu mostly, tumezoea kuji-identify na our father's name, unagete. But kuna wale wenye, wame-raise na single moms, and they are proud out there. Utapata chali mtu maybe kama Ken anaitwa Wanjiru, anaitwa Wangare, anaitwa Nyambura, and they are really proud of it, and you're like, hey, umsi anaitwa, unajua kitambo tuko tunaelewanga mbona mtu chali anaitwa Wanjiru ama Wangare ama Nyambura, but saizi tumekamkuelewa why they actually use those names, because they are proud children of single moms. So identity is something that is very important for everyone and anyone. Like kila mtu anataka kuji-identify roots zako, nimetoka wapi, ama certain behaviors. You know, sometimes when you're growing up, you're like, no wonder, mi nika budangu, no wonder, mi nika madhangu. So, utapata environment iko sawa, unapendwa, umepatiwa kila kitu financially, emotionally, physically, everything is there. But kuna ile kitu inaitagwa attachment issues. Unaona, mtoi asha-adoptiwa, amekuja kwa hii familia, but ndio atoshe hapo. And then pia ina depend mtoi alikuja kiwa mdogo ama alikuja kiwa older. Hiyo pia ina matter, because at the end of the day mtoi, kuna watu wataprefer waseme I want a toddler, anataka mtoi mwenye ni mdogo mwenye hana hiyo memory. Na kuna mwingine atasema I want an older child mwenye already an understand, so it won't be difficult for me to actually explain it for them. So it really depends with the adoptive parents, like what do they want. Kuna wale watasema okay, taka mtoto mdogo, but ukumbuke at the end of the day, how are you going to break this news to this child? Because at some point, either tu kuna nosy neighbor somewhere atawai sema by the hata afanani hata akai kama huyu nini
Or even your biological children.
or even your biological
Cheza tu
children. They'll always
watakwambia
be
wewe
like,
hata si wewe.
wewe hata sijui ulitoka wapi. Unaelewa?
Yeah.
Innocently.
Yeah, it
Ama
happens.
wewe unakanga different kutuliko. Okay. Una get na hiyo kitu maybe kuna ile inatokanga from a bad light na kuna wale wenye wanaisemanga tu innocently, by the way you look different from us, unaona. So you as the adoptive parent, you need to be very careful with how you're going to break this news to this child. Like utamwambia at what point utamwambia like tulikuadopt and these are the reasons why. Na ujue the minute tu mtoi ameshajua hivyo, ujue already ataanza kujiuliza maswali, ataanza kufeel insecure like mbona kuni mapero wangu wako wananipenda, like they didn't love me enough to actually keep me. So hizo ndo vitu zenye huwa zinasumbua hawa watu wenye wako adopted, because at the end of the day unataka hiyo identity, unataka kujua kwa nini mama yangu alinipeana. Unaelewa? Sio ati upendwi, unapendwa tena sana, umespoiliwa, umepatiwa kila kitu, lakini mbona mama yangu aliniwacha? You know that question you can it always comes up at the end of the day, Safi. Na hakuna ile day enye utawai evade your question. So whether you want to hide this from this child or you want to tell them from the word go, at the end of the day hizi ni vitu lazima huyu adoptive parent akwe very ready to deal with. Na pia adoptive parents wanafaa kukuwa ready zile za ujue ni mtoi amekam, maybe haujai kuwa parent before, kuna wale wenye hawajai kuwa parent before, or kuna wale they are already parents and they still want to adopt a child, anataka kuongezea, una get. So lazima ukwe very careful, lazima upange hizo mikakati, ujue mtoi anakuja kwa environment new. Na pia wewe kama mzazi, kama ujai kuwa mzazi, how are you going to deal with this toddler or this child? Utamhandle aje? Because we think it's all rosy and all, hey, tutakuwa sawa, nimepata mtoi eventually, but ujue ni mtoi na ujaizo ya kukua mtoi, na kuna zile behaviors zenye watoi kwa nazo. So wewe unaweza grow up in an environment ujiulize, kwa nini nakuanga hivi? Kwa nini mama yangu hayuko hivi? Kwa nini baba yangu hayuko hivi? So at the end of the day, remember, identity is something that is very, very important to everyone and to anyone out there.
We'll talk about having that difficult conversation of and when and how it should happen when you're telling this adoptive child that actually they are adopted. How do you even do that? But before that, there's the aspect of the identity that comes with the struggle that these children go through. And joining us now is CJ Atemo. Now the panel of eminent experts is fully constituted. Karibu CJ, good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you as well.
Yeah, we had already, thank you so much. We had already started just scratching the surface, and we were talking about the reason why sometimes we may think adoption is the best solution in circumstances where a family cannot be able to take care of their own biological child, based on the conversation we had recently. But then again, let's look at beyond the adoption decision. What are some of the complexities that come with it? And I would like to hear your thoughts about whether that's the decision that should just be made, you know, like, okay, we can't take care of this child, so let's give them up for adoption. Or there are certain factors from where you sit that should be considered before that very decision is made.
I think there's a very difficult decision to make, because most times it is made at a particular temporary point. This baby is probably a few months or just maybe 1 year old or something. And the prevailing circumstances then are what will dictate the decision that is being made. And life is very dynamic, so things are going to change along the way. Even just for the parents that give up the children, sometimes later on they feel they're now in a better place to take care of the children, so they would wish to have that child back, you know, or now begin to participate in the life of that child. It's the fears that we have of the unknown. It's the inadequacy of that particular point. So before you make that decision, ask yourself, what if circumstances change? Would you still want to make the same decision? And is the financial capability the only capacity you need in raising a child? Because finances change. I mean, a breakthrough can come up like the next day. A door can open up. Your business can just shoot up. Somebody can come in and do something. You might even find somebody coming in and at the school and deciding that they want to sponsor some kids, and your kid becomes part of those. So the financial should not be the only consideration at that particular point. We may also talk about the emotional, but then again in the other conversation, I talked about about the element of the support system, that you may not be in the emotional space to do this, but do you have a support system around you that can raise this child so that this child never struggles with the fact that they don't feel like they belong? So even from the parental place, I think mostly that decision should really take time. Don't just go in the immediate feeling that you have and say, I'm going to give up this child to adoption. And because also this child is going to go through certain changes as well. The adoptive parents as well, you know, you receive a baby and you think that this baby will remain as innocent as they are, as they're looking at that particular point. As they begin to grow, their personality begins to form and shape, and part of their genetic composition begins to show up. So you will begin to deal with certain things, you know.
And this is something you can't change.
No, you can't change, and you can't
Genetics.
predict. You can't change, you cannot predict that. You begin to see it as it goes. I mean, your own biological children will shock you as they grow. And you can trace this, you can say, okay, well, this was how my...
I used to do this. Just know somebody somewhere will pay back.
So you can imagine now handling somebody whose DNA is totally new to you. And they're growing and they're changing and they become probably assertive. It is very possible that subconsciously you begin feeling, even you as a parent, you begin feeling like, you know, this child is different from my kids. It is very possible for you to do that, especially if they are assertive, if they are aggressive, if they are drawn back, if they speak up, and your house doesn't have people who speak up, you may start feeling like, but this kid is very different. And this is where sometimes then people find themselves trying to share with somebody or reaching out somewhere else for help. And they say, you know what, I've got this kid, I adopted this kid, we're having this situation, what do we do? I think sometimes the decision being made at that early stage never really prepares us for the challenges that are going to come with us.
It's good you've said that. So before that decision is made, think about, you know, the whole stretch, how it's going to be 18 years from now, this child, how they're going to look like and how they're going to behave before you make that decision. But you've talked about the parents making the decision. I want Ken to talk about the adoptive parents. What are some of the reasons that somebody should not use to adopt a child?
Oh, wow.
The no-nos.
The no-nos. You know, parenting must happen at a particular time and for a particular reason. Don't do it because everybody else is having a baby. And because you feel I'm not ready to have mine and my clique or my team everybody has a child, let me go and look for a baby. That's precisely number one, I would say. Don't do it to just flow with the people. Don't do it because you're being forced. You know, even in situations where, take for instance, I have passed away, I'm not going anywhere. And my family decides that my children must be adopted. And somebody is forcing them on you. And you're saying no, but they are saying yes.
But it's not African to say no. I mean,
it is, you're right.
You are doing well, you have a good job.
What is a good job?
Say you're doing well, you know, you are the one who can assist.
Don't be forced into doing it. Even in situations where you are being forced by a circumstance, the government creates a safety net for such children. And that's why we have children's homes that are run primarily by the government of Kenya. She was talking about love. You know, love is a basic human need. If you cannot be able to extend that love, a child will thrive because of two things. Instinct is what you share with your child by birth, but there is the intuition that you teach your children when they are growing up. Intuition is taught by the nurturing. If you're not ready to nurture, you know, having a number of years, 30, does not make you old or wise. Because even fools will grow old. There are people who are struggling with themselves at the age of 40. If they are struggling to bring themselves up, how will they be able to bring somebody up? So don't do it just for the sake. And also don't do it because I have to have a baby. Time is rushing. I settled on a career, and now all of a sudden I'm realizing where I cannot be able to have a child. So what do I do? Because I'm rushing against time. Wacha tu nilete katoto, tukae na ako, tutajua kutaendelea aje. No, everything works at the right time. Adoptive parenting, which is by choice, should be well thought out, as CJ has said.
Yeah.
But adoptive parenting that is now by a chance that has been created by God in his own sense of humor, then you have to sit down. Even a family should be able to sit down and really talk about such situations, because at the end of the day, it is the child who will suffer. And remember, in the African culture, we say, if we go, the 5 of us, and the 4 of you belong to one family, and we want to roast our maize. I don't know. You don't know how to roast maize, eh?
Why do you say that?
Meaning Mluya,
Why do you say that?
If there are only 4 spaces, the siblings can actually fight the other child out. They become an outcast. And if you teach somebody that they are an outcast, that person becomes very rebellious. Go to teenage, when I talk to teenagers and I am told one who is rebellious, you always want to know what has emanated from the home, because the home is where the rebellion comes in, but they will show it in school, they will show it in church, they will show it when they are out there. So the home is a very important place. And home does not also simply mean blood relation. You could be adopted by people who is not part of your kith or kin, but they will give you a better environment as opposed to your own relatives. Because some relatives, I don't know whether they were made in hell or dropped where, but some relatives are really bad. I don't know, maybe QT ulisoma siku njema. The river and the source. When you going to look for your source, it's because you also want to understand where you're coming from. Yeah. When we say the apple does not fall far from the tree, you want to also know which tree did I fall from, so that I also understand. We teach it in psychology. We call it the genealogy, where you go back to your genes and your roots. But sometimes it's a tedious journey that you may not want your child to one day come and say, these adoptive parents of mine, where did they bring me from? Because where I could have thrived and where I am, these two situations are not good. So create an environment that will make the child
Is it
thrive.
always obvious, though, that when this child is looking for their source, it's because of the mistreatment?
No, some just want to go back to the source. Yeah. Some just want to go and identify where they came from out of curiosity. Some could be because maybe they are successful and they think, I was adopted because my parents could not afford me, but they did a good thing for me because they were not selfish. They didn't want me to suffer. So can I go back and thank them and probably bring them out of poverty now? So it's not always on the flip of the negativity.
All right. Roberta, there's that issue that is coming up about whether the child would rather know or not know that they are not from that family. Where do you sit on that debate? Kujua na kutojua, because sometimes you kumwambia that you're not okay, that's not the language. The experts will the experts are here. Yeah, kumwambia that this is actually you're adopted nini, wanasemanga that's what triggers now. Yeah, kumbe misi wa huku, so ndo inaanzisha hiyo process ya kutaka kutafuta watu wao. So would you rather ajue ama asijue? Which one would be best for this child?
This is a very difficult...
It's a catch-22.
It's a very difficult question, especially because I'm not a parent. So it's difficult for me to immerse myself, in that situation. But what I'd say is how you, venye Ken amesema tena, how you use the nurturing, it is important, because then again, if you're caring for this kid and you're raising them well and you're giving them love, they're comfortable, they're safe, does it really matter? Does it really matter? I mean, even if you decide to tell them, will it change anything if you've been a good parent, if you've been active, if you've been available, especially in all the ways that you need to be as a parent? Does it really matter? On a very personal level, I'd rather the kids be told, but at an age that is appropriate, at a space where they're able to understand, somewhere where they can ask questions, understand the conversation. I don't think, this is personal. This is not something I'm saying, go and do this. If you're watching me do this, no. This is a very personal thing. I think when it's age appropriate and you have the appropriate language, it's just like all other conversations, how you can talk about sex, money, relationships. You don't just start to your 8-month-old baby, Sasa Toto, pesa kwa hii nyumba tunatafutanga hivi, like, you know, it's age appropriate. It's at a space where they're able to understand. Because sometimes, like CJ and Ken said, also QT mentioned, ikutafuta pali umetoka. Kwanza, if you travel a lot, maybe QT can tell us. Hata ukienda majuu, hiyo urge ya kurudi tu home inakuanga. Na saa ingine home si ati kwa mamako ama kwenu. Saa ingine home ni Kenya. Saa ingine home tu ni Nairobi. Saa ingine home ni Nakuru. Saa ingine home tu ni area, ni East Africa. Si lazima hata ikwe ati pali mamako na babako wako ama pali kin wako. So that need for finding out, you know, your roots and where you come from and where you belong, it's a very intrinsic thing that is caused by nature, because it pushes you to it's like a caring mechanism where you're supposed to protect and care for each other. So it's a very animalistic thing. It's very primal. It's very natural. So on a personal level, I don't know if I would advise, you know, someone what to do, but I think it's important that these conversations are being had, because what's really the difference, honestly, if you really think about it deeply? If you have everything you need and I love you, it doesn't change that I'm your mom just because I adopted you from my sister or because I got you from my children. So mi ndo mamako sahi, na mi ndo mamako sasa from now forever. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't change that we're not related by blood. And I say this acknowledging that it's very difficult to care for someone that is not... Even caring for your own family members ni ngumu. So kukuwa na hiyo selflessness ya step out of yourself and, you know, going out to take someone else and care for them, it's very difficult. But I'd like to commend everyone who, you know, takes that step and puts themselves in positions where it's not always easy. And these things, they don't... Kena amesema ni important to plan, especially if it's adoption, because you have ample time, you can think about it. But venye tu CJ amesema, life ni dynamic. Unaweza kwa push kesho ukwe mama, utafanya nini? You know, you just step up, and most of these life changes, they're not things that we anticipate. It just gets you. But if you've been intentionally working on yourself, you can be able to push yourself and say, hey, I can do this. I mean, I've been able to take care of so-and-so by proxy. I take care of myself. So why not? Why not try to extend this love? So find a way, consult your kina CJs and Kens. Find a way that is appropriate for you to bring this conversation, to introduce this conversation. It's safer for them to know, because even, you know, kids are bullies. Even in those moments where they're having situations, oh, wait, when it's light skin, kwetu sisi wote ni ma dark chocolata. Where is this difference coming from? The kid is able to ukimwambia we si wetu, okay, and, you know, okay, I'm not from your family, but then, if the kid is loved and assured and confident and well taken care of, it doesn't really make a difference. If anything, they'll be running to that same parent of theirs to say, Mommy, this is what happened. Instead of, you know, taking up the rebellion and being angry. As long as they can come to you as a ene kukua mzazi ni kibarua. Lakini si rahisi kusema kweli. Lakini ukicultivate your space.
Umejua what's about to happen.
Venye tu nafikiria, naanza kufikiria. As I'm speaking, I'm thinking, like, am I selfless enough? Am I able to I think I could, but I won't now because I don't want to. So thinking of everyone else who does it, whether they were just plunged into it or they just made the decision or they planned adequately.
It's not easy.
Hongera.
Hats off. Anyway, we'll talk about how to have that difficult conversation with CJ in a bit. But QT, sometimes Kenye Ken alikuwa amesema, unajikuta you're not given a choice. Wacha tuongelele African setup. Sometimes unajikuta you are an adoptive parent by force. Baby sibling, maybe you're taking care. Hata anaweza kuwa either anaishi na wewe ama you're just taking care from a distance, yeah? I mean, pia, it's another, you know, how do you, in case you're not comfortable, how do you, like, unafaa kufanya nini?
Unajua Safin, kila kitu
because hakuna haja kuforce alafu uanze kucomplain like hata watoto nini unawalea but still una complain. So how do you deal with that dilemma?
Mi na believe kitu moja, lazima utry kitu ndio useme iwezi. Siwezi sema exam ni ngumu na sijakaa chini sijaisomea na you understand? Siwezi sema shule ni ngumu na sijai kwa shule, you understand? I believe like lazima niingie kwa ngori fulani ndio niweze kuisort. Niweze kukaa chini niseme enyewe, unaona vile Bobby tu anakuwa honest, anasema yeye saizi ana feel okay, I can do it, but si saizi, siko kwa hiyo space, siko kwa hiyo environment. But you know sometimes vile umesema, sometimes unaekago kwa test ama choice tu, unashtukia by the way your parents are no longer there, maybe nyinyi orphans, unapata ma firstborn. Na by the way, hats off to also all firstborns, because firstborns wamekuanga na kazi ngumu sana.
Adoptive parents by default,
yani by default,
hata parents wakiwa,
hata parents wakiwa by the way sometimes hata wakiwa ndio my deputy parents, but unajipata kwa hiyo ngoria, maybe even the parents are working, wako mbali, they are not always there, you're always the one that is taking care. Unajua hizo ni situations zenye unajipata, but mi na believing kitu moja, you have to give it your all, you have to try first and then say, by the way, I really tried this but it's not really working for me. Because as much as utataka kusema okay, I'm not ready to be a parent right now, I'm not ready, I'm not in that environment, but it may happen. Uni sister yako unafaa kumtekea care, ama sister yako, God forbid something has happened to them, you need to take care of the kids. Me, what I believe in, yani ingia tu kwa hiyo nini, jeke tu kwa hiyo situation, and I believe you come out, neza sema, uneza surprise yourself. You can actually surprise yourself. Unakuja unajipata haya, kumbe neza kuwa mzazi wa mtu, by the way. Kumbe Nairobi neza kuwa tu nikitembea hivi na nikuwe mzazi wa mtu. Na by the way, kumbe neza kuwa. But most situations, pia what I wanted to say is that utapata, kuna wale watu kabisa hawaizi pata watoi. And they really love to be parents. Yani kabisa unapata umsi, anataka kuwa mama, anataka kuwa baba, but hana huo mtoi. Do you know people approach others and they're like, by the way, kama unafeel utaki, you know that's where the surrogates come from, like, cheki, if you can be able to get these kids for us. Kuna mwenye anatafuta hiyo do ile side, na kuna mwenye hii side. Unajua watu ujipata tu kwa different situations, and never ever say that it can never be me. Usiwai kujamali ukasema it can never be. It can be you. Anything can happen to you. So hiyo swali tu yenye umeuliza, like, always be ready for anything, alafu kuwa ready kutoshea kwa spaces. Mimi naweza sema tu just be ready kutoshea kwa spaces, because ukijipata kwa hiyo situation utafanya nini? Watu hii watupangwi. Huwezi tupa, okay, kuna literally watu wenye wanatupa watu hii, but huwezi sema watu hii watupangwi. At the end of the day, and then kids are innocent. Kids are a blessing. Mtu hii amekam, imagine, surprise yourself. You can be a good mother, you can be a good father, na unaweza jipata watu hii hata wamekam, wamekupenda, na hiyo environment imekuwa fiti, na ujui mbona. Me believe God puts you in situations whereby uneko kwa situation yenye we mwenyewe hata uko na expect but later on in life utakama useme no wonder this happened to me. Hata utajipata unalea watu wenyewe probably wewe haujui, but probably wezi pata watu then umejipata we ni pero. So at the end of the day, jieke kwa situations, to share kwa situations. Kids are very innocent. Hakuna mtoi mwenye aliuliza kuzaliwa. Safina, hata sisi wote tulijipata nao wazazi. Unaget, au kutuma application ukasema mimi nataka kuzaliwa nao wazazi, au kunoku ukasema nataka kuzaliwa. Watoi ujipata kwa situation. So it's only fair that you give these children a chance as a guardian, as a sibling, as a parent, as whoever you are. Ile situation tu umejipata, patia mtoi chance, because hizo ndio trauma tunakam kudeal nazo. Utakataa mtoi ama useme mtoi by the way tusumbuaga, huu ni headache, mimi hata sikuwa nakutaka. Do you know there are people who just say that? Literally they say that, mimi hata sikuwa nakutaka, wewe hata si wetu, by the way, mimi hata si baba yako. You understand? Unapata mnalea watu hii na mtu, then anakuja anambia huyo mtu hii, by the way, unajua mimi sikuangi baba yako, ende utafute baba yako. Do you know what that will do to that child? Hiyo ni trauma yenye hauwezi wai, like you can never be able to erase that trauma. Na unajua mtu hii at the end of the day ataenda atatafuta huyo baba yake, ama ataenda atatafuta huyo mama yake, just to identify ama tu kutoshare. So whatever situation that you find yourself in, please patia huyo mtoi chance, lea huyo mtoi, na usimuonyeshe anything that inaweza mfanya I feel like out of place ama they don't belong, because these are the traumas that we are dealing with right now with adults.
Sije na umeongea kama
mzazi.
Niko na wazazi kama mzazi.
Ama imetoka kwa roho.
Sije, how do you avoid that instance where mtoto ataambiwa blatantly mimi si baba yako, you know? How do you have that conversation? Because Roberta said it's important from where she sits that mtoto ajue, but how do we do it in a way that will not make this child really disconnect from this family or start feeling like, how do you do it?
The situation of Roberta is the ideal. The ideal is that you need to let them know. But on the other hand, you have to consider other factors like, will this enhance their being or is it going to create more confusion? In the case where, for example, you've taken a kid from a very toxic home or parent, or a parent that is going through certain situations like mental illness and stuff like that, will knowing the parent help this child? If this child gets to know who the parent is and they go back and then they face the rejection that QT is talking about, what will that do to this child? So sometimes the truth is not told to protect the child from probably a pain that would be even harder than them getting to know wherever they are. So it is a situational thing where you make decisions based on the circumstances that are attendant to that particular point. In cases where you feel that this would enhance them, then maybe you can have that conversation. When to have it is a very difficult thing to say. Sometimes they will come with a curiosity. Maybe that's a cue, but sometimes by the time they're coming with their curiosity, you're not even prepared yourself to have that conversation. You're shocked that they know that and you don't know how to handle this. You've been all that you can. You see, what happens by default is that when a child comes to you and says, who are my real parents? The first thing you may think is that you're not a good parent. So you want to go into your defensive mode, but that's not what they're asking. So that's why sometimes parents don't have those conversations because they think that they're being indicted for not being very good parents, but the child just wants to know. So even that process of having the conversation, it can't happen overnight. It cannot be something like the kid came in today and asked, and then he said, okay, let's sit down. I've been waiting to have this conversation with you. There's got to be anesthesia because that's like a surgery. That's a whole surgical process. There will be emotions. You have to make sure that you're removing the unwanted stuff and you're not touching what needs to remain. At the end of the conversation, this person needs to remain at a place of feeling the love, the care, and the need to belong in that place. So you don't just go in with a knife and cut all the organs that they have because you wanted to drop the truth, and that is the truth, then you let them deal with it. So it needs some level of maturity on the parent side as well. And if it is very difficult for you, you may need some help. You may need to have somebody else who can also help in beginning to prepare this person for this conversation. If you know you blurt out stuff, please don't have that conversation.
Black and white.
Yeah, don't say stuff like, I picked you up because your mother was a drunk and she was, you say, well, at least she knows the truth. That truth will hurt this child for a very long time. So it's a process. I think when you're getting there, even as a parent, seek help. Find out how to deal with this. It's like when you're a caregiver, you also need support. So seek help, find out how to deal with it, process that thing and pace it. But what you must never do is to now begin to doubt your parenting skills because you'll go on the defensive. And sometimes then the parents begin to overcompensate, which is something I wanted to say as well, that adoptive parents sometimes overcompensate. So they will not really discipline this kid. They will not be firm because they want to make this kid feel accepted and loved. And so one of the things that the child will get to know that they're different about is how the other kids are handled and how they are handled. That with the other ones, there's a firmness, there's a strictness, but then with them, they get away with nearly everything because the parent is thinking, I don't want this child to feel unloved. So now they take it to the other end completely. So you shouldn't do that. Be firm and fair at all times so that all of them just feel like, they belong to the same parent.
Overcompensation. I never really thought about that. That's a good one. Ken, tunamaliza kipindi. So
Haraka hivyo.
I know you have something to add on that, like how best to approach this and how do you work with the psychology of the child so that as he feel, in as much as you've dropped the bomb, but haitatoa hiyo feeling
Tear
of,
gas.
yeah.
I would say this is not something that every parent must be ready for that question. Please be prepared. At every particular age, know that tomorrow they might ask, but it's not an event. It's not like I've been, here's your birth certificate, you know my name, this is you and this is me. Don't create a situation where the child will hate their parent. When you try to show the toxicity side of why we brought you from that environment, it's like you're trying to prove a case We brought you here because this was safer. Remember, the instinct that a child shares with their biological parents, that can never be broken by anybody. And when you're getting ready for this, just ask yourself, what benefit will it be for this child at this particular time? Just because they are truant does not mean it is the time to drop the bombshell. Parent them. Yeah? If you can get tired of your own children and still accommodate them, be ready to accommodate even that one that you have adopted. Remember, it is you who knows you have adopted. The child does not know they have been adopted. Truth is very good. But at what particular time should you tell the truth? The truth should be for mutual benefit. It should be for the benefit of the child and the benefit of the parent. So if it is one-sided, then it is not yet time. Sometimes, don't even wait for being on the deathbed. You know, Kitambo wazazi would call you when they are almost dying to tell you where the title deeds are and all. Yeah? Do it when it is time. But when is the right time? I would say there is no right time. It is when the parent feels that this person now can be ready to hear the news.
And the other side is also
they're ready. Don't tell them when they are just about to walk down the aisle. Oh, you know, even as I hold you as your father, you know, I'm not your...
They're like, what?
Yeah, don't create the trauma.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, my
Roberta?
God.
It's a funny one.
Kids are very intelligent. Kids are very smart, they're cognizant, they understand, they listen, they can see, they can tell the difference, they know. So navigate, I like venye Ken amemalizia, navigate carefully. I think your job as a parent is just to parent. Hizi vitu zingine, they come as you go. And as they come, start prepared. Start prepared. By the moment you're deciding to be a parent, not even deciding at this year I'll be a parent, if you know you're projecting to be a parent at some point, even if vitu unafaa ukue una plan around, unafaa ukue unafikiria, not even necessarily actively, but just think of any other possibilities. Anything could happen. Any situation could show up. So please keep working on yourself so that by the time you're getting, if you're thrusted into parenthood or, you know, if you decide or you choose, it's a bit more, at least accept na mind, accept na physical attributes.
Thank you, Roberta.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm pressed for time. 10 seconds.
10 seconds. You are responsible for raising someone's dad. You're responsible for raising someone's mom. Kumbuka huyu ni a whole human being na atenda uko inje. So please just be the proud parent. Make sure that you're a proud parent. Namalizia hivyo.
Asante, CJ.
I'll go back to what Kitty brought up of somebody coming up and saying, you know, I'm not your father, but then they're married to probably your mother. For anybody that is getting into a serious committed relationship and yet you're parenting, either by birth or by adoption, be very careful about whom you bring into the lives of these kids. You have to share the common vision and they must appreciate those children. They come in not just to relate with you, but also to parent with you.
It's true.
Right.
Hey,
I love that.
Mtu na watoto wake, I mean, why would you marry the mom and or the dad na utaki watoto? And women who hide the fact that they have children, ndio wapate bwana, hapo ndio shida huanzia. Just be very open from the word go, from day one, or from the time you're ready to have that conversation with that gentleman. Tell them you have a child. Let them make that decision before they get married to you. See ati baadaye, ndio they realize kumbe they are an adoptive parent and you didn't tell them. That's actually something that is very wrong. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate your time and company. We do this again next week. Asante sana. Keep watching Citizen Television. My name is Safin Acheng Oma.